Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into neuromodulation. We've gathered some really interesting material to explore what this actually is and, why it's pretty fundamental for understanding the brain.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. So you often hear about neurotransmission, right? That's the brain's really fast messaging system, direct signals, neuron to neuron.
Quick calls, basic act.
Exactly. Neuromodulation, though, it's different. Think of it as more subtle, maybe a longer lasting kind of influence. It gently adjusts the activity of whole groups of neurons, these neural circuits.
Ah, okay. So not just turning switches on and off, but more like adjusting the dimmer switch for a whole network.
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's about setting the overall tone or responsiveness, and understanding this shift, this subtle control really changes how we can think about, well, everything our brain does.
Right, so what kinds of brain chemicals are doing this modulating?
Well, there are quite a few. Serotonin is a really well-known one, and we can definitely talk more about that. But also others like dopamine, crucial for reward, motivation, and acetylcholine, which is important for things like attention and learning.
And these have wide effects, not just one-to-one.
Precisely. They often act more like broadcasts, influencing large populations of neurons across different brain areas.
Okay, serotonin. We hear that word constantly in relation to mood. So how does this broader neuromodulation actually shape how we feel or even how we think?
It's really about tuning the circuits. Neuromodulation influences the background activity, the excitability of circuits involved in emotional states, cognitive functions like memory, attention, decision making. It's shaping how these networks process information.
So it's fundamental to our experience, basically.
Absolutely.
Which, okay, leads me to think about medicine. If we understand this modulating system, can we, use it? Are there therapies based on this?
Yes, definitely. Neuromodulation therapies are a significant and growing field. Deep brain stimulation, DBS, that's a prime example.
All right, DBS, where they implant electrodes.
Exactly. They place electrodes in very specific brain regions and use electrical pulses to modulate, to adjust the activity in those targeted circuits.
Okay. And what about something maybe more common, like antidepressants? How do they fit into this neuromodulation picture?
That's a really important connection. Many antidepressants, particularly SSRIs, work by influencing neuromodulator systems. They change the availability of, say, serotonin in the brain.
Ah, so they're essentially acting as chemical neuromodulators themselves.
In a way, yes. They're helping to retune those circuits involved in mood regulation by adjusting the levels of the brain's own neuromodulators.
So you mentioned DBS targeting specific areas. Can neuromodulation generally be targeted, or is it always kind of a widespread effect?
That's the exciting part. Targeting is getting much better. While some neuromodulators naturally act broadly, techniques like DBS and potentially future methods allow for increasingly precise intervention in specific circuits.
That's really promising. What about other bodily systems? Like I see hormones mentioned here. Do they play a role?
They certainly do. Hormones, from the endocrine system, they can travel to the brain and act as neuromodulators, or they can influence the release and impact of other brain chemicals.
So it's all interconnected, brain, body.
Very much so. It highlights this complex interplay that governs our overall state.
It really feels like we're just scratching the surface. Looking ahead, what does this mean for treatments? Personalized medicine? Maybe.
That seems to be the direction, yes. The potential for personalized neuromodulation is huge. As we get better at understanding an individual's specific brain activity patterns, their unique neurochemistry.
We could tailor treatments much more effectively.
Exactly. We could develop interventions, whether they're pharmacological or device-based, like DBS, that are precisely targeted to that person's needs. Better outcomes, fewer side effects, hopefully.
Okay, so let's quickly recap. Neuromodulation isn't the fast, direct signaling of neurotransmission. It's a slower, broader, more tunable influence on brain circuits.
Right, affecting everything from mood to cognition.
And we're learning to harness this through therapies like DBS and understanding how drugs like antidepressants work within this framework. Plus, the future looks towards more personalized approaches.
Precisely. It's about understanding the brain's background music, not just the solos, and learning how to conduct it better.
Really fascinating. So here's a final thought for you listening. If neuromodulation subtly shapes so much of our inner world, our thoughts, feelings, reactions, how might really grasping this change the way you think about your own mind? And as we get better at, adjusting these systems, what possibilities might open up? What does that mean for us? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.